Former Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles is settling in at Penn State now, where they just gave him a 3-year contract for $3.1 million a year to run the Nittany Lions defense, highest paid coordinator in the country, as they try to take that next step. They got to the semifinals, lost to Notre Dame by 3 points. Otherwise, they would have been in the championship. We would have had all Big Ten championship. That would have been cool. That's how close Penn State is right now. Knowles can help them get over the hump. He just held his first team meeting with his new players. Now, he's a Philly native, and he told his coaches and players, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. I know Ohio State tried to pay him a little bit of money and try and keep him, but this is where he wanted to go. This is where he was going. He remembered watching Penn State highlights as a kid. He dreamed of playing there someday. He was never good enough to make it as a player, but all the work and success of his career allowed him to get to the point now where he could just pick up and go wherever he wanted to. And this is where he wants to go. This is where he wants to be. Apparently, this is the place he's always wanted to be. He's always wanted to be at Happy Valley. He's 59 years old. He's been coaching for 37 years. It just seems he's always wanted to land at Penn State one way or the other. Ryan Day called him the best defensive coordinator in college football. That's why I think they did try to up the ante a little bit and try and keep him, but it got to over $3 million a year. You got a lot of money. And I think Penn State football coach James Franklin would agree he's the best defensive coordinator in college football. And, the Buckeyes, while Knowles was the defensive coordinator, they've held Penn State to just one touchdown offensively in the last two games they played against each other. Ohio State's defense has just shut down Penn State's offense. That got Penn State's attention. So why not get the guy in charge of it and have him working for you? Because they had to replace Tom Allen anyway. Penn State's hiring of Knowles off of one of their rivals' staffs. It completely reset the market with that annual salary of $3 million a year for a coordinator. A lot of coaches, a lot of head coaches make that kind of money at a lot of schools across the country. Not Power 4 schools, of course, but elsewhere it does. And the Nittany Lions say they're all in. Plus, they're returning dozens of players from a team that won a record 13 games this year. Again, coming within a field goal, beat Notre Dame. They're ready to go. They think they're on the doorstep, and they're going to punch through it. And since Penn State and Knowles reset the coordinator market, I want to talk about that for a minute because it's affecting other people as he's all good to go at Happy Valley. How about USC's Danton Lynn, their defensive coordinator? Now, he signed an extension with USC a week earlier. Should have waited one more week. He's only getting $2 million a year. Now, he was involved in this too. It's pretty good. And so his story is he was at UCLA a couple of years ago, and actually they had a really good defense. Chip Kelly's last year out there. He was Chip Kelly's defense coordinator. And then USC poached him away because Lincoln Riley was pretty desperate to turn some defense around and get some improvement. And he finally fired his good friend and longtime defense coordinator, Alex Grinch, who came over with him from Oklahoma. And then they got Lynn to move across town and take over the USC defense, and it worked. Now, despite USC's disappointing season, they finished 7-6. The defense was much improved. Couldn't really blame the defense too much. The Trojans gave up 10.3 points per game less than they did the previous year in 2023. Gave up 55 fewer yards per game. And they're all happy. They wanted to keep him. But there was a little bit of a bidding war, a little bit, because Penn State was also talking to him before they were talking to Jim Knowles. And remember, Lynn used to play for Penn State. That's his alma mater. I think he was interested in that. So he played corner back in the day. But no homecoming in the works for him. And Penn State's interest went elsewhere to Jim Knowles. But at the time, talking to him, that jacked up his price with USC. Because I'll tell you what, USC could not afford to lose him. Go through 3 coordinators in 2 years. They couldn't have done it. Either way, Lynn was going to get paid. But that market for defensive coordinator, man, that's a good spot to be in these days. All right, one other note as we're getting ready for the Senior Bowl. Michigan running back Kalel Mullings, talking about Michigan earlier. He's not in Mobile, Alabama right now. He's nursing a minor injury. He's expected to be ready for the NFL Scouting Combine February 7th through March 2nd in Indianapolis. He's currently projected as a day 3 draft pick. He is one of 4 Wolverines that accepted an invite to the Senior Bowl. Mullings had a great season last season. And in fact, he kind of came on a little bit as a surprise and stole some of Donovan Edwards' thunder, rushed for 948 yards and 12 touchdowns, splitting time. And now remember, he was seen after the Ohio State game in the post-game interviews wearing a boot on his left foot. So he messed that up. And he did not play in their win over Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl, but he says he should be good to go. Speaking of Edwards, he did not play in the Ohio State game and then opted out of the bowl game, but he will play in the Senior Bowl. Edge Josiah Stewart and long snapper William Wagner are all going to be there in Mobile, Alabama, to play in that game. Meanwhile, some hoops to tell you about. Here we are in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. Number 17, Wisconsin at Maryland tonight, 7 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. For men's, also Rutgers at Northwestern at 9 o'clock Eastern on the Big Ten Network. And women, number 14, Maryland is at Penn State. That's at 6 p.m. on the Big Ten Network Plus. And Michigan at Wisconsin, the ladies playing at 7:30 on Big Ten Plus as well. Speaking of hoops, middle of the week, we always do power rankings. Football's over. Let's take a look at the Big Ten men's power rankings as we see it. You can agree or disagree. That's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten.